Welcome to the Cyber Center for Biblical Studies. Hi, my name is Herb Bateman. Today we want to review a commentary that's part of the Teach the Text commentary series. The commentary we're going to focus on is the commentary on the book of Revelation. We have with us Mike Hontz from Pleasant View Bible Church here to share with us some of his insights and some of his takes on this commentary. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Herb.
So as we think about this commentary, tell me how it unfolds. Is it a typical commentary in the way it unfolds? Tell me a little bit about it.
So the author is Scott Duvall, and the approach, as the title of the series might indicate, is intended for pastors, teachers, those who are trying to teach through the book, to give them helps. So it's intended to go well beyond just the academic meaning. What does the text mean? And so it has each chapter has 3 sections to it: understanding the text, which is more or less the typical commentary, and then teaching the text, which tries to draw out what are the main themes, what are the main principles that you would want to teach from this passage to a group of people. And then the third section, illustrating the text. So how do you take these main themes and illustrate them? And so it'll include suggested stories you might use that help illustrate it, or object lessons that can be used to make a point. You know, for example, one of the chapters where it's talking about that common theme of persecution and turmoil and that's going on in the world, and yet that idea of God's sovereign control despite what's going on around in the world. It suggests, using a snow globe, shaking a snow globe up, and that snow globe illustrates the turmoil in the world around, and yet there's one holding that globe steady. And so it tries to come up with simple things like that can be used to help make it applicable and memorable to your audience.
Okay, well, I think I know the answer to the next question I have for you, but let me go ahead and put it out there. Some people may respond to this differently, but what spurred you on to read this particular commentary on Revelation?
Sure. So really two-prong answer. I was getting ready at the time to teach through the book of Revelation as our next sermon series, and so I was exploring what different commentaries were available that would be helpful. And then maybe just a step beyond that, why this commentary? I mean, honestly, I've explored dozens of commentaries on this book, but this one particularly has stood out to me because, I have found the hardest part, or the most time-consuming part for putting sermons together, is not so much the academic element. It's not so much what does the text mean. There are numerous resources available that I can find that will help me understand what the text probably means. But particularly a book like Revelation, some of those passages that are difficult. Our church tradition, not exclusively, but primarily, we work through books of the Bible, and we don't skip over the passages that are less homiletic, that are less naturally used in sermons. And so sometimes trying to scratch your head, okay, what do I do with this? How do I turn this into a sermon? And so anytime I can come across a resource that helps with illustrating a passage or using object lessons and gives help for the communication process, I'm all in. And so I was excited to explore this book.
Well, good. Well, let me... Revelation isn't the easiest book to kind of to nail down some theological issues. But if I were to ask you, what were some of the key theological issues that he addressed and that you found helpful? What would you say to me? How might you answer that question? So,
Duvall's approach to the book of Revelation is eclectic. And for those who might not be familiar with the terminology there, essentially the eclectic approach seeks to take the strengths of essentially the 3 primary approaches to the book of Revelation. It kind of excludes the historicist approach from that, but the preterist approach, it would seek to take the strengths of saying that this book was addressing the situation in John's day when he wrote this to his audience and highlight the elements at which John's audience would have immediately understood and identified with. Similarly, the futurist approach and those who would see this book as a prophecy for the future, particularly the time period just before Christ's return. It would seek to take the prophetic elements and highlight the most important parts of that approach and incorporate it. And then thirdly, the idealist approach, which would see this book as identifying themes that have been true in every age from the time of Christ to the end. The people of God being persecuted as they seek to be faithful, they seek to be good witnesses to the truth of who Jesus Christ is and salvation as found in Him. And so this author tries to take all three approaches and incorporates sees strength in each of them. His theological position, as far as from an end times perspective, he is a historic premillennialist. So he would see a literal kingdom yet to come. He does not see us fully living in the kingdom now. So for example, Revelation chapter 20, he would see as something still to come. He's not a dispensationalist per se, but he does see a literal future millennium to come. Although as far as whether that millennium by definition is literally 1,000 years or not, he doesn't take a strong position on that per se. But that's essentially his approach. He attempts to stay basic to the themes, and in his introduction he'll tell you his goal is not to answer every question one might have about the book. He's not going to try to answer what every point of every vision is. He's going to try to stay big picture. What are the main themes? What is the main application? How would John's audience have been compelled to live in response to hearing this book, not so much the speculative approach of try to figure out what every nuance and detail of each vision means. And so,
okay, all right. Is there anything you wish the author had addressed? You had a commentary like this. Is there anything you wish that he didn't cover? You wish he had?
Honestly, in fairness, I could come up with something, but I'd feel like I was nitpicking. I feel like for the purpose of his commentary, he didn't intend it to be a deep exegetical commentary that deals with every question. At the same time, I appreciated the fact that it's very obvious that he has interacted with many of those works and resources. This isn't just a pastor's sermon prep that was put together in a commentary. You're not just dealing with his own ideas and opinions. He clearly has interacted with G.K. Beale and Grant Osborne's work and some of the thicker substantive commentaries. He's clearly interacted with them, and he'll boil down a view of what he believes, and if he'll might quote from Craig Keener's commentary if he feels like that one says it as well as he could. So it's very academic in its research, but it's very practical and to the point in its presentation.
Okay. How might this book help a pastor? I think in some ways you've already answered this question, but just for reiteration, restatement perhaps, what might you say about this book that might help a pastor in perhaps planning a preaching sermon?
Yeah, this has become, again, I've in the course of this series, I'm in the midst of it right now, I've probably read from 20 different commentaries, and I've boiled it down to where this is probably the first one that I typically read, because he just does a good job of boiling down the basics, of getting my mind thinking about, okay, my goal is to prepare a presentation of teaching this to people from, in our church we've got people that are brand new believers who know very little, if anything, about the book, and those who have studied it in depth and have very strong opinions about what they believe it means. And so just trying to think through how to help both of those extremes and everything in between, how to present something that will be substantive and yet challenging and impactful and applicational. I feel like this book is the one that I enjoy the most of the ones that I've looked at in helping me begin thinking along those lines.
Very good. All right, now you've already mentioned, I pose my last question to you. You've already mentioned some of these commentaries, but I'm going to ask, when you think about what you've done, as you think about your use of this book, what would you say would be 2 or 3 other commentaries that would be very helpful as a complement to this one for doing a series on the book of Revelation? What might you suggest to our audience out there that might be listening and might be contemplating a preaching series on the book of Revelation?
So, my personal favorite, as I'm looking for maybe some of the deeper, more technical questions to be answered, I really enjoy Grant Osborne's commentary in the Baker Exegetical series. He really goes deep. He's going to interact with all of the works current at the time at which he wrote. And so from the academic content, that's kind of my first go-to that I've used. Commentaries that are sort of in the same genre of the Teach the Text series, where they're intended to address more of the applicational illustration type elements. I'd say a runner-up to this one is Craig Keener in the NIV Application Commentary series, another very good series. I kind of like the format in the Teach the Text a little bit better. I feel like it's a little bit easier for me to go and as a resource and quickly find the particular topic or his comments on a particular theme that I'm looking for, and the illustrating the text is a little bit different from the NIV application. The application of the text is highlighted, but not necessarily suggestions on how to illustrate it or stories to use, which I found very helpful in the Teach the Text. And then again, similar genre of commentaries would be Max Anders' series, the Holman New Testament Commentary, where it attempts to present it more or less for pastors and teachers, highlighting application and the essential things that you would share with a lay person or someone who's not at a seminary level.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for sharing with us and making known about this commentary. And thank you for joining us. And I trust that as you think through your preaching schedule, you might consider preaching the book of Revelation and take advantage of some of these newer resources on the book. In the meantime, I trust you will have a great day. Thank you.